Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be learning about multiplying integers. Take a look at the column below and see if you can see a pattern. Go ahead and pause the video and come back. Okay. What pattern do you see? If you notice, there's a negative number being multiplied by a positive number. Now some people might say, Ms. Hanson, how do you know that that's a positive number? Well, if you look, there's nothing in front of it. If there's nothing in front of it, it means that it's a positive number. So if you notice, if a number doesn't have anything in front of it, it actually means a positive number. For example, if you're 14 years old, you don't write it positive 14. You just write it 14. So whenever you don't see a sign in front of a number, you have to assume that it's a positive number. So let's move on to the next one. We notice that a positive number times a negative number is equaling another negative number. This is the second time we've seen it. Let's see. Negative times a positive equals a negative. Positive times a negative equals a negative. So the signs are different, and they equal a negative. So what sign would go in the box? Would a positive or a negative sign go in that box? If you said negative, you're correct, because a negative times a positive equals a negative. Now you might be wondering, why is this? So let's take a look. Why does negative 2 times a positive 3 equal negative 6? Because negative 2 times 3 equals negative 6, and that's the same thing as the opposite of two groups of 3. The opposite of two groups of 3. Two groups of 3 is 6. So I want the opposite of 6. The opposite of that is negative 6. So the opposite of positive 6 is negative 6. Let's see what that looks like. Here's positive 6, and there's two groups of 3. Notice the two groups, and in each one, there's 3. Well, look, the opposite of that is two groups of negative 3. So when that looks like this is the model. And now we're going to look at the algorithm. Algorithm is what we work with the most. That's what we're most familiar with. So the opposite, that's what that negative means, the opposite of two groups of 3 is negative 6. Now let's take a look at this column. If you notice that I pause the video quickly, it's because there's an announcement. I don't want it to interrupt your learning. So, now look at the column below. Do you see a pattern? What is it? Go ahead and pause the video and come back. Okay, let's see if you found the same pattern. This time we have a positive 2 times a positive 3 equals a positive 6. Positive times a positive equals a positive. Here we have a negative times a negative equals a positive. Negative times a negative equals a positive. Positive times a positive equals a positive. Same one as above. And negative times a negative equals a positive. Same one as here. What sign would you put in the box below? Would you put, I should say, in the boxes below? Alright, let's see what you did. 10 times 3, and we can look and we say, wait, that's a positive times a positive, so that's going to equal a positive. So we're going to move that positive over here. And let's see, a negative times a negative is going to equal, sure enough, a positive. So before we had the rule that different signs equaled a negative. Well, here the same signs equal a positive. So let's take a look at this. 2 times 3 equals 6. 2 groups of 3 is 6. You might notice that I'm doing kind of easy algorithms here. 2 times 3 equals 6. I know that you all know how to multiply those numbers. It's just that sometimes it's better to build off of something we're more familiar with when it's new information. So a positive 2 times a positive 3 equals 6. Let's see. 2 groups of 3 is 6. And sure enough, 2 groups of 3 equals 6. Well, let's look at the opposite. Negative 2 times a negative 3 is 6. Why is it that it equals 6? Because the opposite of 2 groups of negative 3 is positive 6. So this negative shows us as the opposite of 2 groups of negative 3. Here's 2 groups of negative 3, which is negative 6. We want the opposite. We want the opposite, which would be a positive 6. And when we talk about opposite, think of absolute value. If this is negative 6, this is 0. This is positive 6. They both have the same absolute value. So when I'm saying opposite, this is what I mean. So go ahead and try to fill in the boxes below using what you just learned. All right, let's check. The opposite of 4 groups of negative 7 equals positive 28. You could also just write it as 28. The opposite of 6 groups of negative 8 would be a positive 48. You could just write it as 48. And in fact, let's model negative 4 times negative 7. That would be opposite of 4 groups of negative 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's one group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We have 4 groups of negative 7. Now I need the opposite of them. So I'm going to make them all positives. That one's supposed to be a positive. And sure enough, we now have positive 28. I hope this has been helpful to you. Make sure that you watch the video as well that discusses dividing integers. Thanks so much.